Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pole Vault Project. I'm your host, Daniel Turvey, and we are here today with Jordan Scott. Jordan, just to go over some of his career highlights, has been a four-time Team USA member, a two-time Olympic trials finalist, 2013 indoor US national champion, and 2010 NCAA outdoor champion. Jordan, welcome. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm happy to be here with you. So I guess first and foremost, I have to ask about the hair. I know there's a story behind the fact that you dye your hair all the time, and I would love to hear that story.
Okay, well, I guess the first explanation is yes, my hair is actually naturally brown. A ton of people think that my hair is blonde naturally because I have light-colored eyebrows and other hair, and nobody ever sees me with brown hair anymore, at least in the last 5 or 6 years. But yes, it's brown, and I take breaks every now and then from dyeing it. I guess the real question is, why did I ever start dyeing my hair like an idiot? It's because in 2010 is when I started after a really, really, really crappy indoor season. This was a season when I think it was my junior year in college, and I was favored to win NCAAs, and I was just geared up to do really well that year. Started focusing a little too hard just on technique and not having fun and treating it like a job, and no-hided at indoor nationals and just wanted to quit altogether because I thought I had worked so hard on the right things, but turns out I was focusing on the wrong things. And my coach and I had a heart-to-heart and figured that I needed to find my fun again and pole vault to have fun like everyone should. And I, strangely enough, interpreted that as do something crazy outside of pole vaulting. So I cut my hair into a mohawk for the next meet, which was outdoors, and I ended up getting on some pretty big sticks and got some pretty funny questions, and it wasn't really like attention that I wanted, but it was kind of put pressure on myself to do well since I had a stupid mohawk in my head. So the next meet, I dyed my hair for the Texas Relays that year, and talk about weird looks and questions, and my coach getting the whole 9 yards of questions from all the coaches. It was pretty funny, but I ended up jumping 571, which is 18.9, and it was a big PR for me and second highest jump in the world at the time, and it was cool, and I figured I couldn't stop there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that I think it's an awesome and very creative solution to the problem of, running into a wall where you're not really having fun anymore and something needs to change. And
Yeah.
I think pole vaulting is so specific like that, because if you're a soccer player and you're having trouble in one specific aspect, or say you're a basketball player and you can't make free throws, you can go and work on something else and come back to it later. But pole vault, we just pole vault. You can work on other aspects of your training, but at the end of the day, you got to pole vault. And if you're not having fun pole vaulting, I think, that's a really good lesson for people, is to maybe take a step back and find a way to make it fun again. And that's your hashtag, right? Is find your fun.
Yeah. I can't say that I started that. I mean, I think I did, but then I saw like a week later that Crocs was using find your fun. And so I'd search the hashtag find your fun and see a bunch of pictures of Crocs, and I cracked up, but whatever. That's what I've always told kids and people my age who aren't having fun.
Awesome. Maybe there's a sponsorship opportunity there with Crocs. Maybe that you can talk them into making some, custom pole vault spikes out of plastic.
I'm gonna be polite and say not interested, but yeah, it hopefully it'll open some doors somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. So do you have any other advice for people that are maybe they're just getting started in pole vault and they they don't really know where to focus their energies in their training? Do you have any advice for young people just getting started?
Yeah, it's a big question, but it can definitely be simplified down. And it's like there are obviously a million different things you can work on for pole vaulting. There are so many different movements and muscle actions and all kinds of stuff, but it really just comes down to running fast, planting tall, and swinging and putting pressure on the pole. You know, it's so the biggest thing in high school to work on is, well, I mean, when you're in high school, you're pretty fearless. Okay, when you get older, you kind of get the yips and I don't know, you hit some roadblocks. But I remember when I was a kid, I would do anything. Someone would say, jump on this pole, do it. Sure, whatever. What is it? I don't care. But running fast was something that helped me a ton when I first started vaulting because my technique was crap. And I never worked on anything after I took off the ground. So it was just running fast and planting tall. And all of a sudden I was on pretty big, long sticks and jumping 17 feet my junior year in high school. And without doing anything up top, I mean, I was like split-legged. I still do it all the time where I like my right foot kind of goes off to the right, my body twists, but I was on a big enough pole that it would toss me over a bar. So I'd say that's the biggest, most important thing to work on, or at least to focus on. If you're just starting out and you're not to the point to go to little finesse yet at your peak speed, well, I guess you never really hit your peak, so forget that. But it's a good thing to work on, just running, planting tall, hitting the pole really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, clearly as someone that jumped 17 plus in high school without focusing all of your energies on the technique, like just being faster and working on the run and the takeoff will get you a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess what about college? You know, maybe someone's now, they're a college athlete, they're starting to take this a little bit more seriously, they're starting to focus more on all the different pieces that are going on. And I think for me at least, and probably for a lot of people, one of the biggest differences getting into college is like the mental game. Like it becomes much more serious, it becomes more emotionally stressful. Do you have any advice for people that are in college? I mean, obviously dye your hair funny colors.
Yeah, that'll instantly get you another foot guaranteed. No, college did get more serious, and you're kind of getting paid to do it, so it's another stressful thing. Like if you're on scholarship, I mean, you feel pressures from everyone. I mean, if at your school there's a risk to lose your scholarship, then you feel like you have pressure that way. Or if you're trying to get a scholarship, there's pressure that way. And you know, there's just so many meets and championships and coaches that you can put pressure on yourself. And it's really hard. Well, it's really easy to not have fun anymore and get sucked into just having all the pressures pile up on you and get stressed out. But that has never been good for anyone to perform well. So, you know, when you get into college and start vaulting, vaulting a little higher, you know, you get on the national scene, I would say the biggest thing to work on then is your mental game and working on how to control what you can control in the vault. And what I mean by that is don't worry about anything that is out of your control. And you have to realize, you have to like make a list, separate what's in your control and what's not. I mean, for example, the weather, you have absolutely no control over that. Which pole you jump on, you have control over that. How you feel that day, you know, you have control over, but to a certain extent. If you don't feel well, if you feel really bad, then as my sports psych always told me, have a good shitty day. Okay, just don't try to PR every single day you go out there. You know, you're not going to feel your best every day. So it's a big mental, you got to practice on that mental game really hard and know that there will be days when you have to be on your best, and there will be days where you just have to suffer through it and make something great happen on a different scale, something great mentally. So that's the biggest thing that's helped me, is knowing when, not knowing when, but knowing what to focus on certain days. And some days when I see everyone else having really good warm-ups at a competition and I don't feel very good, I have to stop watching people warm up, because there can be tons of people who win the warm-ups who don't do well in the meet, and you just have to tell yourself that. Like, don't psych yourself out, and know that you just have to clear your bar and do what you got to do to win the meet, and forget about everything else.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Like, kind of knowing, you know, it's great to know what your maximum is, and what, you know, when I'm feeling my best, when everything's firing properly, you know, this is, I can jump X height. But I think it's also really good to know what your minimum is. Like, if I'm not feeling good, if the weather's, you know, not working in my favor, like, you know, if I didn't get enough sleep last night, whatever the case may be, like, what is my minimum? What can I jump on a day when I'm not feeling optimal?
And that's a really good point. Sometimes pole vault is not really about raising your maximum all the time. It's about raising your minimum constantly, and that way your consistency gets up. On a bad day, you know, you can still jump this high. So always work on raising your minimum. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's another big thing that happens when you get into college. Is high school, you PR all the time in high school, because you're learning so fast. Your PR keeps going up and up and up, and then you get into college, and it, you know, maybe say your PR is like 15.6, but now all of a sudden you're jumping 15 feet or 15.3 all the time, and being really consistent. Well, then, you know, that next PR is right around the corner, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, or, you know, doesn't have to get you down that you're jumping almost your PR really consistently.
Right.
It's like another way to make progress.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What does your recovery look like in between workouts? This is another big thing that I know for me at least has changed a ton since getting out of college. Is you know, I take my recovery in between workouts super duper seriously. What do you do to prepare yourself to work out as much as you do?
Well, I can start by saying that I'm with, I think, most people that never does recovery as much as you should. Like, I can do as much as I can handle, and I think that I'm doing it all, but there's always more recovery you can do. So know your body, know how much you need to do in between workouts and what you need to do. But pick everyone's brain about different recovery techniques, what they do, what works. Try it out. If it doesn't work, don't worry about it. You don't have to do everything that the gold medalist last year did. Okay, everyone's different. For me, I use a foam roller pretty often, just to break up some knots in my muscles and kind of get things loose again. And I do a lot of stretching before and after practice. I also take rest very seriously. I sleep at least 8 hours a night, but I try to get 8.5, because I figured out that works best for me, and I feel the most refreshed in the morning. Whenever I have to stay up late, or I'm at a family function or something, and I have to go to bed after when I want to go to bed, I find every way possible to push things back the next day so I get enough sleep. Like, that's really important to me. I think sleep is where you recover the most, and a lot of people don't realize that. And let's see, another thing, I've never gotten hurt to where I've had surgery or have been out for a whole season or anything. And I think I attribute that to listening to my body really well, and knowing when my hamstring feels tight. You know, I know what it feels like to push it, and I know what it feels like to push it where it's a little past the point and I strain it. And right when something like that happens, I immediately, you know, go to the training room or find someone to start working on it, and then I rest it. I find any other variation of the workouts I was supposed to do and do them, whether I turn it into a bike sprint workout instead of on the track or something like that. So, I mean, I don't get in, if you see my workouts on paper throughout the whole year, I may have gotten in like 2/3 of that as it is on paper, because you're constantly adapting to what you have to do to listen to your body. And I think me not getting hurt is because of that. So that's the biggest thing with recovery for me, is listening to your body and getting enough sleep, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, the sleep component is huge. For anyone that's out there watching, there's a guy named Dr. Kirk Parsley. He's got a TED Talk and a couple longer interviews, and he's like a sleep researcher. And he has some amazing statistics. It's, you know, things like you're like, if you sleep 6 hours a night, you're like 30% immune compromised, and your like insulin function is 30% reduced. So you're like a pre-diabetic just from not sleeping enough. Like if there was something you could take, like a supplement that would have a 30% increase on your performance, it would probably be illegal.
Yeah.
But for some reason, sleep is like not something that people pay attention to all that much.
Yeah, I know. I think it's huge. And that's why one of my sponsors that I seeked out actually is Bedgear, which has pillows and sheets and sleeping performance gear. And I mean, I thank the world for them, because it's so important to have. I mean, you spend a third of your life sleeping, or at least you should. So it's a big part of your life, and you need to take care of that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you also mentioned the injury prevention part, and I think that's huge. I think that's honestly one of the biggest differences between like seriously elite level athletes and regular athletes, is the really elite level people like yourself just have that really deep intuitive understanding of their body, and like, this is just enough and this is too much, you know, like that line where I'm pushing it too much, I'm going to get injured, knowing when to go hard and when to back off. I think that's a hugely important sense for people to learn to develop over the years.
Yeah, and it's definitely something you develop over the years. That just comes with experience and picking everyone else's brain. Like I learned years ago, I forgot who told me, but it was a famous biomechanist or kind of biomechanics guy, and and I was asking him about back squats, because my back has been hurt since high school. I squatted too much, and I was doing all kinds of other things, triple jumping and sprinting, and I just overused my back big time. And so it's been weak ever since I stretched out some ligaments down there. And so I always have to find ways to adapt exercises, and especially back squats, to where I don't do a whole lot of weight, but I do different variations and maybe quicker or whatever. And I asked him, I was like, you know, how can I get to the point where I can do heavy weight down to a deep squat again? And he's like, why do you want to do that? I'm like, well, because that's what people do. And he's like, no, when you run, I mean, how much are you in a squat position when you sprint? I'm like, well, I guess not really at all. And he's like, if you just do half squats, then get weight up to whatever's comfortable, like whatever pushes you. I mean, half squats are way safer for my back than going full down in a squat, but I get the same effect. And it's just, I mean, being able to talk to people that know more than you about certain things, which everyone knows more than you about something. It's really important to pick their brain and learn something that has helped me over the past few years, just doing half squats and not going deeper than that unless it's really lightweight, just to stretch. So that's something I recommend, picking someone's brain.
Absolutely. Getting advice from, you know, as many people as possible is always helpful. So I also wanted to ask about the transition from college athletics to professional athletics, because that, you know, a lot of people do track in college, and then there seems like there's this big drop off where a very small percentage, just like the top kind of cream of the crop, end up doing it professionally. And I think, personally, I think one of the things that's kind of missing in track and pole vaulting in general is like a big amateur league of like post-collegiate people that just compete. And I know some parts of the country are better than others, but that transition is really hard for a lot of people, getting out of college, not having a team necessarily to train with, and not having a place really to train, and they just kind of go, okay, well, I guess I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, I guess what was that transition like for you out of college into the professional scene?
Well, it's hard to put it into words what it's like unless you're jumping insanely high on such a consistent basis, which you talked about, the cream of the crop. That's the Sean Barbers and the Sam Kendricks of the world that just have it figured out. They understand the jump in their sleep and everything, and my mind and my body just doesn't always connect. And so I've been, I guess, on the elite level, but right under where I've always wanted to be, where I can jump any height I want to whenever I can. And there's such a fine line between making it out of college and making money and surviving. And there's so many people who are just going out of college and want to keep the dream alive and survive. And I'll tell you some of the crappiest apartments and houses I've lived in, and the food budget of maybe $100 a month, and that's not near the worst of my friends out there. I mean, I've had it made. Like, my parents have always supported me and given me support and advice and financial support, moral support, and everything. And my wife, of course, has too. And I've been more fortunate than so many other people who have just been in that survival mode, that the stories I hear about their living situations and stuff is like, you wouldn't believe. If you're in college doing well, I have all this support, and maybe you're on scholarship and you get meals and whatever. It's crazy to think that that can just all be taken away by graduating. So, I mean, I really hated classes in college because I didn't think that I was just there to pole vault and I didn't really want to learn. But then I graduated and realized I immediately regretted that. So I went back to grad school and continued to vault while I was in grad school. And then when I got done with that, I didn't think about doctorate much because that didn't really intrigue me. But now I'm like, I really miss college. Like, having that support and being on the college team especially, it's just such a tough world to come out and transition into the elite scene. Like, I can't really describe what it's like. Everyone told me it would be hard, but when you're in college, you're pretty invincible, and you're like, nah, it'll be fine. I'll just jump an American record and be set next year. It'll be fine. So it doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That, you know, it's not necessarily a glamorous lifestyle, right? Like, this isn't football, this isn't baseball. You're not coming out of college and getting a multi-million-dollar a year contract to pole vault. It's, you know, you're footing your own bills until you do get that big scholarship or do set that, you know, national record or something. So it's not a glamorous lifestyle necessarily right out of college, and I think that takes some people by surprise, maybe.
Yeah, I know I just talked in circles there and couldn't really formulate a thought because there's so much emotion and stuff that goes into what it's like being a professional pole vaulter, but not winning every meet and jumping high consistently. Because that's the key, working on that minimum, getting it up there, working on consistency. And I have yet to do that up to my standards, but got to keep trying.
Absolutely. So you mentioned at one point having a food budget of like $100 a month. I imagine that was probably pretty difficult. And I'm sure also you learned a lot about, you know, kind of how to best invest that money. Do you have any advice for people in terms of like diet and nutrition and where to get the most bang for the buck in terms of investing in food?
Well, I definitely won't say that those few months that I ate that little were nutritious, but eating healthy, unfortunately, for me, has been a little more expensive than when I didn't have much money. Then I was just, you know, eating a bunch of ramen and spaghetti and the cheapest meals I could possibly find. And luckily that phase didn't last very long, so don't worry about me. I'm fine, Mom. Eating healthy is a big part of being a professional athlete and an elite athlete at any sport. I don't do it nearly as well as a lot of other people do, but I have found, I can go back to listening to your body. I have found what I think to be a healthy balance of probably 70% eating healthy and 30% kind of just managing and eating kind of what I want, but not being an idiot. So, a lot of people like that 90-10 balance of like maybe once a week or so I'll have a dessert or a cheat meal or something, but that's not fun for me, and I'm all about keeping it fun. So if I'm being an elite athlete, I'm going to do it on my terms, but not be stupid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, like having one day a week or a couple meals a week, or, I think it's like you said, listening to your body, finding what works for you is key. Because if you're constantly like, I just want to eat a cookie, and you never eat a cookie, you can only do that for so long. You can only keep that up for for so long before you go crazy and eat like 3 boxes of cookies.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's something you're really big on and you have a lot of willpower and you think that eating healthy is going to get you there, then by all means, like, go all out and do that. For me, I really love food, and I really love fatty food and gluten and all of that. So give it all to me, and I'll pick out what's relatively healthy.
Awesome. Do you have any, again, I don't think this is the best format for technical pole vaulting advice, but do you have anything that you think is super important, or something that you see people do that you just go, oh, how is that? That's not okay. Don't do that.
No, the only thing is when like high schoolers or even some college athletes who just don't have a real coach, like a coach that has any pole vault background or has had any pole vault training, unfortunately, it's still pretty common to go to some smaller meets and see some pole vaulters that scare the living crap out of you because they haven't been taught the right way to do things, and they just have a coach that has, maybe the school has a small budget. They have like 3 poles, and that's all that they use, and they don't know how to use them or where to grip on them. And it's just unfortunate that some people don't learn the right way to do it, because that gives the sport a bad name by being very unsafe when you watch these jumpers jump. So my biggest pet peeve is probably coaches who don't give pole vault training the time of day. And I think if you're thrown into coaching the pole vault, I mean, you learn the event, at least the safety protocols for pole vaulting and just the basics. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, athletes who do weird technique or stuff that's kind of weird or abnormal, power to them if they can make it work. I mean, I think there's always a better technique out there than what's currently being used. I mean, Sean Barber is jumping on longer poles than anyone ever has pretty much in history, at least successfully. I mean, nobody thought you could jump on a 17.6 pole or whatever he's using and jump high on it. Nobody ever thought you could move that into the pit. And then Sam Kendricks, nobody thought you could jump that high on that short of a pole. He's not on really short poles anymore, but he just really mastered that technique. And if anyone remembers Jason Colwick with the kind of dive into takeoff and double leg swing a few years ago, I think he's jumping again and jumping well. I haven't seen him lately, but his technique will scare you the first time you watch it. But it's magnificent when you watch it in slow-mo and realize how he catches the pole and how consistent he was for years, jumping really high bars. I mean, there's things like throwing your head back that some coaches say really avoid, blah, blah, blah. But if it gets you where you want to go safely, do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you raised a couple really good points there. And one of them that I'm 100% behind you on is, like, I think pole vault gets a bad rap a lot of the time for being really dangerous. But if you watch people that know what they're doing and watch coaches that know how to coach, it's really not all that dangerous. Like,
no, it's beautiful.
you know, especially with all the safety stuff and all the mats and the new box collars that keep coming out. Like, it's not that risky of a sport if you have someone that knows what they're doing coaching you.
Right.
Yeah, and then the technique thing, like there's so many different ways of doing this. There's so many ways of getting over a bar. You know, the guy that sprang to my mind was Scott Huffman with the Huffman roll. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's so many ways to do this. There's not one right way.
Yeah, and he did that. I don't know if everyone knows, but he did that on accident in practice one day, and I think it was in practice, not a meet. But then, like, he only did that on accident when the bar would go up, and he hated doing it. But it turned out it was such a crowd pleaser that he ended up getting paid to go to meets just to do that. So he learned how to master it, but he hated it. But it was something different, and it actually, you know, got him jumping really high. So it was pretty cool.
Awesome. I had not heard that story. That's really cool. Do you have any sponsors that I know you mentioned the sleep product company, the name of which I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Do you have any sponsors you want to thank?
Yeah, I thank all my sponsors. Bed Gear for providing me some sleep gear, and Rudy Project for the sunglasses over the last few years since the last Olympics have been unbelievable. One of my favorite sponsors, Run Gum, some caffeinated gum. It's really fun to get hyped up on gum, and I've had several other sponsors. Manic Panic Hair Dye. It's really cool to be sponsored by a hair dye company. I think that's awesome, and a lot of other people do too. I know I'm going to forget people because I didn't write them down. I got so many great sponsors. Hold on, I gotta look. Can we pause?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's so cool that, you know, there are so many companies out there that are willing to sponsor pole vaulters and willing to say, like, here, like, you know, take some of our products, or, you know, here's a little bit of financial compensation. Like, I think that's a really cool thing that happens.
Yeah, and of course I forgot the most obvious ones, like UCS Spirit for helping me with poles and making the best pole out there. I know I'm biased, but I love it. And Vault United has always been a strong supporter of mine. They've had a club and given me jerseys, given me pole vault bags. Just been extremely supportive. It's one of my good buddies that runs Vault United. So that's been awesome. And then I've had several sponsors throughout the years that maybe have dropped off or whatever, but those are the big ones. And USA Track and Field Foundation has helped me a ton. Athlete Biz. Just a lot of special people that if I didn't name you, thank you for all your help, whether it's photographers or whatever. There's a lot of strong supporters out there. My family, my wife, everyone's helped me get to this far, or get to this point, and hope we can make it to Rio to make everyone proud.
Awesome. And where can people go to find you, follow you, and support you on your hopefully journey to Rio?
Yeah, my username or handle or whatever you want to call it for pretty much every social media outlet is JScottPolevault. And also, if you want to support me, I want to start another crowdfunding campaign soon. I want to build my own site, but I've been working on other clients as I'm a web designer in my other life. But until I get that going, anyone can donate at any time to extremely support me in a strong way financially at jscottpolevault.com/donate, I think is the URL. If not, just go to my jscottpolevault.com website and there's a donate tab. Of course, that would be greatly appreciated. But any support by positive feedback or positive encouragement on Twitter or social media, I always love that. I love when people say that they're a fan of mine because that makes me feel famous, and that's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the number one thing that people can do for the sport of pole vaulting, obviously, is participate. You know, we need people to jump, we need people to, you know, show up and watch meets and cheer. That's the best thing that you can do for this sport, is be a part of it. And the second best thing that you can do for this sport is to support an athlete that's trying to make this their career. Like, if anybody's out there watching this, like, it's, you know, every little bit helps. Like we were saying earlier, it's not a glamorous life as a pole vaulter. You know, pole vaulters aren't getting multi-million-dollar a year contracts. So, you know, those donations really do help. And this show, the Pole Vault Project, is free and is always going to be free. And if you find this information to be valuable, I would strongly recommend that you go find a pole vaulter like Jordan and make a donation. It really helps. It really goes a long way. So awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being here. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for all your help and advice. And if anyone has any questions for the Pole Vault Project, for me, questions they want me to ask, people they want me to talk to, you can find me on Instagram at the Pole Vault Project or on Facebook. And with that, we will see you another day.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch and have a great day.